Hi, I'm David Porterfield, My Sierra RV, and my family and I have been RVers for about 10 years now, and as you can see behind me, we do most of our travel in our Sierra fifth wheel. You may currently be an RV owner yourself, or maybe you're in the process of buying one for the first time, and if so, you're going to be in need of RV insurance. And unfortunately, not all RV insurance policies are created equal. So what I'd like to share with you today are some of the most common mistakes that you'll want to try to avoid if you're in the process of either renewing your insurance policy or maybe you're acquiring one for the first time yourself. So let's get started. Now, one of the first and most common mistakes that's usually made when trying to acquire RV insurance is we'll just call up our current auto insurance company or our homeowners insurance company and we'll just try to add our RV on to our existing policy. Now, unfortunately, most insurance companies don't specialize in RV coverage, and so they'll just simply treat it like it's a large automobile. So when they provide you a quote, their policy usually is leaving out the specialized types of coverages that you're going to need as an RV owner. And this may be leaving you financially exposed to certain risks that you may not be aware of. So it's important that whenever you start to look for a policy that you work with a company that specializes in RV coverage so that you make sure that you're getting all of the protection that you're going to need as an RV owner. And the other advantage is that in the event that you have to file a claim for loss or damage to your RV, they can help you with that, but they can also help you file claims for the other types of losses that you're going to incur as well. Now, the next most common mistake that's usually made is that we will just be loyal customers to our current insurance company, and we do this without getting any real benefit in return. Most insurance companies actually count on this by making the renewal process extremely easy by just sending you a renewal notice, and as long as you make the next month's premium, your policy will just continue. And yet we do this all the time without really shopping the market to make sure that we're getting the best rate we can. I actually, for years, was with one of the major insurance carriers, and every 6 months I would just simply renew my policy, and I did this for policy after policy after policy for a number of years. But during that time, I never had any traffic violations, and I never had any insurance claims, and yet my insurance rates just continued to go up. And it finally took several years for me to get frustrated enough to start looking into, can I really get better rates, or is this just something that's inevitable? So I would always recommend that every time you come up for renewal, that you go ahead and shop the market, get multiple quotes, and make sure that you're not only getting the proper coverages that you need, but you're also getting them at the best rates possible, because you will find that you can be competitive as long as you're willing just to put a little bit of work in. Now, there's one more advantage that I would like to share with you when it comes to doing this, and that is that look for companies that will give you a 12-month policy instead of a 6-month policy, and that way your rates will be locked in for a longer period of time and you won't have to renew as often. And that's a huge advantage to keeping your rates low over a longer period of time. Now, another common mistake that is made is that we end up with an RV insurance policy that has certain limitations or exclusions in it that we may not even be aware of. For example, many insurance companies don't cover permanent attachments, things like your awning or your antennas, for their full replacement cost, or they may not cover them at all. You might be interested to know that these items are actually in the top 5 most common RV claims each year, and you would hate to find out when it's too late that you don't have that kind of protection. So it's important that when you're looking for a policy that you make sure that your permanent attachments coverage is actually in the policy as well. Now, the next common mistake that I want to review with you is ending up with an RV insurance policy that doesn't have any protection for your personal belongings that are inside your RV. Because many RV insurance policies are just treated like auto policies, they don't protect your personal contents that are in the RV itself. And if you do have a policy that does have personal belongings coverage, you want to make sure that coverage is for full replacement costs, actually pays you for what you paid for the item and not a depreciated amount. Otherwise, you may find that you're not getting back enough money to actually replace those items, like your laptop or your camping gear or other personal items that you may have lost. Now, the last most common mistake that I want to review with you is one that I actually think is the most important. And that is, you don't want to end up with an RV insurance policy that is a cash value only policy. And what I mean by that is that in the event that you were to have a total loss on your RV, the insurance company would only pay the depreciated value of the RV, which oftentimes is much less than you may still owe the bank, which leaves you exposed to potentially thousands of dollars that you would still have to pay. You may be familiar with this concept if you've ever bought a brand new vehicle, and that is that you might have had to buy gap insurance to cover that same risk. So what I would recommend that you do is that you look for insurance companies that offer the option to have full replacement cost coverage. Now, it is true that it is going to cost you a little bit more to have this coverage, but I think you'll find that oftentimes that the amount of increase is quite small compared to the thousands of dollars that you may be risking by not having the coverage. I'll give you a quick example of my own experience, and that is for me to have full replacement cover costs on my fifth wheel, it cost me an additional $102 for the entire year, which is about $8.50 additional cost per month. For me to not risk thousands of dollars if something serious were to happen to my RV. So what I would recommend is that when you get quotes, go ahead and get a quote that includes full replacement cost, and then you decide if it's worth it. Now that we reviewed some of the common mistakes that you want to avoid, hopefully you can see why it's important to get multiple quotes and to compare the coverages. I would recommend that you click on the link below this video and get a free no obligation quote from the Good Sam Club Vehicle Insurance Program. Good Sam offers some of the most extensive coverage in the industry, and they do it at some extremely competitive rates. There's a number of benefits that are included in their policies, of which they do provide personal belongings coverage, so your contents is going to be protected up to $3,000, and they do that at no additional charges included in the policy. Permanent attachments, your antennas, satellite dishes, awnings, those kind of things are covered at the full replacement cost, and that's included as well at no additional cost. They also have what's called their emergency travel allowance, which in the event that you were to have a claim while you were away from home and you couldn't stay in your RV during that time, they will help offset things like your food, travel, and lodging expenses, which is a huge benefit, particularly if you're unable to stay in your RV while it's being repaired. If you're a full-timer, they do offer full-timers RV coverage. It's very similar to a homeowner's policy, except for it also does still include some of the additional coverages that you're going to have as an RV owner. They do provide the option for full replacement cost coverage. That this alone could save you thousands of dollars. One of my favorite things that they actually offer, which is their storage option. And let me explain to you how this works. A lot of you, if you're like me, you don't travel all the time throughout the year. Maybe you go 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times a year, something like that. And at times, your RV will just sit in storage, either at your property or somewhere else, for a month, 2 months, 3 months, or however long that it's there. What the Good Sam program will allow you to do is you can turn off your collision coverage on your RV during those months that it's just sitting in storage. This makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because if your RV is not actually on the road being towed around, there's no collision coverage that's actually needed. So they give you the ability to actually turn that off, and they prorate back to you a credit for every month the collision coverage that you actually are not using. And this alone can save you a considerable amount of money on your overall expense throughout the year for your RV insurance. It's a huge savings benefit. Not a lot of companies offer this type of a program. So once again, go ahead, click on the link below this video, get your free no obligation quote from the Good Sam Vehicle Insurance Program, and review all the benefits they have to offer. And you decide for yourself.